In Silicon Valley, disruption doesn't stop at apps and rockets. It's coming for aging itself. Over the past decade, a strange, very real wellness industry has emerged around a provocative promise that young blood might help wealthy clients feel healthier, sharper, and maybe even younger. It sounds like sci-fi or a gothic myth, but the business model is surprisingly mundane. Clinics sourcing plasma from young donors and selling infusions as an expensive, off-label optimization service. In this video, we're exposing the secret billionaire blood boy clinic phenomenon. What's being marketed, what's actually known, and what's drifting into hype. We'll break down how these plasma programs operate, why certain founders and investors have been drawn to them, and the ethical questions that follow when youth becomes a product. Is there solid science behind the claims, or are patients paying for placebo wrapped in biohacker branding? And what happens when a medical procedure is repackaged as a luxury upgrade? From glossy marketing to murky evidence, we're following the money, the medicine, and the myths, so you can see what's fact, what's speculation, and what's just expensive hope. Billionaires have flirted with the idea of young blood as a shortcut to youth, not as a conspiracy, but as a real and controversial wellness business, buying young plasma infusions to further their life expectancies. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Regulators have warned there's no proven clinical benefit for anti-aging claims, and it can carry real risks. Still, the fantasy persists, because the origin story is straight out of a horror film. In the 1950s, Cornell researcher Clive McKay helped popularize a procedure called heterochronic parabiosis, surgically linking a young and old mouse so they shared one circulatory system to test whether something in young blood could influence aging or whether old blood carried something harmful. Later research built on that idea. Older animals exposed to young circulation sometimes showed improvements in certain tissues, while young animals exposed to old circulation could show measurable downsides, suggesting that aging isn't just wear and tear, it's also chemistry in motion. And that's the hook the ultra-wealthy can't resist. If something in the bloodstream seems to move the needle, then maybe youth isn't a vibe. It's a variable. The only problem is the leap from mouse surgery to human immortality is massive, and the marketplace has been far quicker to build than the science. For decades, the young blood idea stayed in the lab. Too gruesome, too Frankenstein to feel like a real consumer product. Then came the 2010s. Silicon Valley exploded with cash, and a new class of wealthy optimizers started talking about death like it was a technical problem with a fix. Enter Jesse Karmazin, a Stanford-trained doctor who looked at the animal research and asked the most Silicon Valley question imaginable: why are we waiting? He founded a company called Ambrosia, and, according to multiple reports, sold young plasma infusions to paying clients, charging around $10,000 for about a liter, sourced from donors reportedly in the 16 to 25 range. The uncomfortable part wasn't the cartoon Blood Boy Farm. It was the banality of the supply chain. Plasma is a commodity, and the same systems that collect it for legitimate medical use also operate as businesses with inventory to sell. And as the headlines spiraled with rumors and vampire jokes, billionaire clients lined up anyway, trading on testimonials and vibes, better sleep, sharper focus, feeling renewed. But regulators stepped in with a blunt reality check. The FDA warned that young plasma isn't approved for anti-aging claims, and there isn't evidence proving it works for those promised wellness effects. This is what makes the whole thing feel like a dystopia that doesn't even need a secret underground conspiracy, just a market, a myth, and enough money to turn a biological curiosity into a luxury product. But there was a problem. The medical establishment was horrified. Bioethicists warned this could turn human biology into a predatory marketplace, and scientifically, there was still no proof it worked in humans. Mice aren't people. When you stitch animals together, you're creating a shared system. A plasma infusion isn't the same experiment. Then, in February 2019, the FDA stepped in with a blunt public warning. Young plasma infusions marketed for aging had no proven clinical benefit, and they weren't harmless, raising risks like allergic reactions, fluid overload, and infectious disease transmission. For a moment, it felt like a kill shot. Ambrosia publicly said it would halt treatments, and the story seemed to collapse under the weight of scrutiny. To the general public, that was the ending. The vampire clinics exposed. The dystopia was canceled and everyone went home. But if you think the appetite died with the headlines, you don't understand how rich people operate. When something wealthy people want gets publicly condemned or strongly discouraged, it doesn't vanish. It gets rebranded and rerouted into the world of concierge medicine, where everything sounds clinical and everything is personalized. You won't see a sign that says young blood transfusions. You'll see sleek language, IV therapy, regenerative protocols, performance optimization. And because plasma is a legitimate medical product used in real care, the packaging is always the same. Medical words, luxury pricing, and just enough ambiguity to make it feel official, despite the FDA's blunt position that young plasma hasn't been approved for anti-aging or wellness uses, and that there isn't evidence proving it works for those claims. This is where longevity stops being a wellness trend and starts looking like class warfare. We're entering an era where the rich won't just have better cars and bigger houses than you. They'll have better biology, bought and maintained like an asset. And if money can buy access to interventions that might extend your healthy years, keeping you productive longer, sharper longer, and able to compound advantage for longer, then inequality doesn't just widen, it hardens into something biological. The fear isn't that the wealthy become immortal, it's that they become a protected class with extra decades of runway, while everyone else ages the normal way, turning the wealth gap into a health gap and the health gap into a permanent gulf. But here's the twist in the story, a twist that makes the billionaires look less like evil geniuses and more like suckers. While tech bros were busy chasing young blood, real scientists kept pulling on a far uglier thread. What if aging isn't a shortage of youth, but an overload of old? Dr. Irina Conboy and colleagues revisited what these experiments were actually implying, and the punchline is brutal. The benefits might not come from adding some magical youth factor, but from diluting the pro-aging junk that builds up in old blood. They ran a cleaner test in mice. No teenage donors, no vampire mythology, just a neutral blood exchange, where about half of the old plasma is removed and replaced with saline plus albumin, basically salt water and protein. And the result? The old mice showed rejuvenation effects across multiple tissues, brain, muscle, liver, without any young blood added. This changes the moral of the story. If the lever is dilution, then paying for youth might be missing the point. Maybe you don't need to steal the fountain, you need an oil change. And in the real world, that oil change has a name: therapeutic plasma exchange, a legitimate medical procedure used for certain autoimmune and immune-mediated conditions, where plasma is removed and replaced with fluids like albumin and saline. Now, does that mean it's proven longevity medicine for healthy people? No. It means the science is pointing to a more unsettling possibility. The future of anti-aging might not be about importing youth at all. It might be about washing the age out of your blood and selling that reset as the next luxury service. The so-called blood boy era may be shifting gears, but the instinct behind it doesn't go away. Because this story was never really about science. It's about desperation, and what desperation looks like when you have unlimited money. It reveals a mindset that treats the rest of the world like an extraction pit. First, it was our data, then our attention. And for a brief, dark moment, the fantasy was biology. The scariest part isn't that the science didn't deliver a clean immortality button. The scariest part is the incentive. If a reliable youth lever ever shows up, something that genuinely buys years, then a market will race to form around it, because markets form around anything scarce, valuable, and measurable. For now, the better supported direction is that you don't need young blood at all. You need to reduce the harmful signals of aging. And if you want to see where this is heading, look at Brian Johnson's Rejuvenation Olympics. It's basically the sportification of longevity, a public leaderboard where people compete on biological aging scores. And the winners aren't the ones with the best vibes. They're the ones who can prove, with repeat testing, that their pace of aging is the slowest. And here's how people are winning it, not with a single miracle pill, but with ruthless consistency plus measurement. They run their lives like a lab. Tight sleep schedules, structured training, controlled nutrition, blood work on rotation, wearables tracking recovery, and stacks of interventions that get adjusted the moment a biomarker drifts. The game is, pick a metric, like Dunedin pace. Test, iterate, retest, and keep the number low over time. It rewards people who can eliminate noise, reduce inflammation and metabolic chaos, and keep their body in a steady, low-stress, well-recovered state long enough that the data actually moves. In other words, less biohacker as rebel, more biohacker as accountant. But keep an eye on what gets branded as the next breakthrough, because the moment something genuinely works, the money won't hesitate. And it won't ask permission from the culture first. If you want the next part of this list, and the tactics that are already being sold as the ethical upgrade, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.